Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. We're continuing to take a look at some of the bigger games in this Week 2 slate, and we got one of the best games of the week in terms of competitive matchups as the Kentucky Wildcats go on the road to the Swamp and play the Florida Gators, probably the hottest team in college football right now. What we saw out of Billy Napier and his team, we're not used to seeing from this Florida Gators team. It was hard-nosed, disciplined football out of the Gators. We're not used to seeing that. I'm very excited. As you guys know, I am a Kentucky fan. I do love what Mark Stoops has done with this program. He is one of the most underrated college football coaches in the country. Yep. And then you just love the flash of the Florida Gators team with Anthony Richardson, who legitimately looks like a Heisman contender. Excited to get into this one. Before we do, just wanted to say thank you guys for all the support. Definitely the Kentucky fans, definitely the Gator fans. We really do appreciate it. We like talking college football with you guys. In the comment section, let us know your predictions below. Let us know some players to watch. Still, let's get into this game. What's your early lean here? What's your early feelings?
I think Florida's like a lot better than people think they are. Frankly, I think what's different is they play legit physical defense now. I think that's what stood out to me. Is I figured they'd be able to move it because if you saw Richardson last year, you're like, oh, this guy someday is going to be really good if he's not hampered by a coach who switches, drives, quarterback to quarterback,
an idiot,
and just as being like a dummy. But their defense, I think, is kind of back on track. I think Ventrell Miller is back to what you want him to be, being that leader, being the alpha dog. Bretton Cox is my guy. Rashad Torrance, great safety. So I think this Florida team is kind of a complete squad. I think still a little underrated, frankly, and I think Kentucky's going to have a problem with
them. The thing with this Gators team is the sky's the limit for them. I mean, Anthony Richardson, in my opinion, is only getting better. He's a guy that hasn't played much football at a consistent level with all the flip-flopping they did last year. But you saw against Utah, the dripping with talent, the playmaking ability this kid has. I mean, he's truly a special player at the college football level, and I think he'll be a good NFL pro too. He's got all the tools. You noted what's most important for me, though. They reestablished that physical run game with a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, with a couple of really good running backs. Montrell Johnson, Naquan Wright, Trevor Etienne really look good as well. It's a way more fit. You always knew they had the talent on the outside. They always have talent. They have speed. The physicality of this team, which that was what was holding them back, especially last year. And against a very physical Utah team, they definitely answered those questions. This game, I would have looked at a heck of a lot different if we were talking about this week one, because I would have said Kentucky, a very physical team up front. I think they'll run right through Florida. Guess what? Kentucky didn't look that explosive against their game at Miami of Ohio. And Florida Gators, they look like they were up for the top.
That's the problem for Kentucky is they've always been able to beat Florida up. The games they've won in the past couple of years, they were able to play really good defense and beat Florida up offensively. I'm kind of with you. I don't see that you can easily do this Florida team because Richardson's a house and he wears defenses down, not the other way around. And, they're just playing better up front with some of the transfers they got in probably some level of just coaching at a higher level and in developing a tough team because just the Mullen teams, as good as they were offensively, were never wildly tough.
I agree. I think it's a massive culture shift that you've seen in Florida with what Billy Napier has brought in. He's addressing the trenches. He wants to get after teams physically. That was the thing that Florida was missing. When you look at taking a preview at this specific game and who's going to win, I really do like Florida inside of a touchdown here to cover just because I don't think Kentucky, their DNA is different this year. They're going to have to lean a lot more on Will Levis and a lot less on that run game. Will Levis is a guy that I love, just very similar to Anthony Richardson, a very talented football player. But he's going to be asked to do a lot more with a little bit less. He loses a guy like Wayndell Robinson. That hurts. The offensive line, from what I saw against the game against Miami of Ohio, not nearly as physical as we're used to
they've been bleeding so many of the guys who made those offensive lines great. Like, they've just lost them all. The Drake Jacksons, the right tackle from last year.
Darian Kennard, Luke Fortner, a guy like Logan Sternberg.
And they've just been slowly losing them.
And it seems like they're kind of all gone, and I didn't see that dominance from the Big Blue Wall, which is part of the reason why I fell in love with this team. I don't know if it's there. Now, what's optimistic for Kentucky fans and what we were saying in the summer and why I still do like this team is The one part that was missing from this Kentucky team and was kind of holding them back from being an elite team was they just didn't really have a quarterback that could make stuff happen. It's all fun to have a great run game. You can win a lot of games playing good defense and running the football. What they just didn't have, you think about back to the Terry Wilson days, to the Lynn Bowden days, they didn't have a consistent quarterback. Will Levis is a guy that can carry an offense. He looked solid against Miami of Ohio, and quite frankly, you have to be pretty optimistic about some of the wide receivers. Tavion Robinson, coming from Virginia Tech, legitimately looks like a Wendell Robinson 2.0. Dane Key, the true freshman, also looked really good. They have some receivers that was probably the biggest question mark heading into the season. They kind of answered that. My big question mark is, can they run the ball? Can they play that Kentucky brand of football that we're so used to seeing with Chris Rodriguez? Question marks. Offensive line, physicality, and the ability to move people around? Question marks. That's why I'm leaning Florida here.
Yeah, and the backup running back just got hurt too. So I think you just have problems with, like, Kentucky's identity is what it is, and that's to be a more physical team than a team like Florida or Tennessee. And that's how they used to beat them, because they're not as talented at the edge. They never really were. And I don't know that when you totally take that away, I think Rodriguez really hurts because he is the tone setter for that offense.
Yes.
He's the hammer, and I think they need that. So that, to me, makes me kind of question. Like, I like Will Levis, but I'm not sure he's like the guy you want in a throw the ball 50 times a game kind of situation.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is I think Will Levis can be good, but he hasn't necessarily proved it. He's flashed at times, but going back to our NFL evaluations of him, he was a guy that was really relying on play action, really relying on getting outside the pocket. Kentucky doesn't look like they're trying to establish the run. If you would have told me against Miami of Ohio they only ran the ball 21 times with their running backs, I would have said you're crazy. That's what happened. They're not trying to run the ball as much. Will Levis threw the ball 32 times, even though they were winning pretty comfortably. This team looks different. And quite frankly, I'm not in love with this Florida to cover 6 points. I do think it'll be competitive. But I have question marks about, can Kentucky win leaning on the quarterback and not the run game?
Also, I still think where if you're going to try to beat Florida, you're going to try to run it on them. And I know they did hold up okay against Utah, but they did get – when Utah was running, they were beating them up a little bit, like at least on their defensive side. So I think that's still where you need to attack Florida, and I just
don't know if they can do it.
Yeah, I don't see the ammo to do it because their offensive line, maybe they can replace all 5 of the guys they've lost over the last 2 years, but I'm kind of skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the box score we saw, and it was really surprising to see only 50 yards rushing for Kentucky against a Miami of Ohio team.
And I don't see this game being held. I don't see this Florida team being held to like 20 points like they have been the past couple times when Kentucky's gotten them. Richardson's a different animal. Like, they're not. I don't know that they're ready for him.
Going back to Florida, I really like what they're doing with Anthony Richardson. They're not asking him to do stuff he's uncomfortable with. They're getting him outside the pocket a lot. They're letting him play kind of that backyard brand of football that he's really good at. Like, there's not many defensive linemen that you get him in space can tackle Anthony Richardson. They're letting him see the field clear. They're making this offense very simple for him, and they're telling him, hey, go out there, be the best athlete, have a cannon arm, and make it happen. And he did that, whether it was with his feet, getting outside the pocket, making plays like he did on that 2-point conversion. Anthony Richardson's a stud. And I really
agree. That's when you can get him out in space, that's where he's magic. And that's not to say, like, he did throw the ball really well, too. I just think he throws the ball really well on the run. And the weapons in his feet are just, you can't not use it. He needs to be outside doing it.
It's part of his game, and you can't take that away from him. You couple that with a Kentucky defense Florida defense, that has that physicality that we haven't seen. You mentioned it to start the show. Ventrell Miller looks like a vintage Ventrell Miller. Brent Cox, vintage Brent Cox. 2 guys that we were really high on in the NFL draft last year. And then Ventrell Miller got banged up. Brent Cox was just very disappointing. They both come back, and they both look like all SEC level players against Utah. I think they can take over the game against Kentucky. I just have question marks with how much Kentucky can beat and attack this Florida defense with the skill sets they have. Lean in Florida. I think Florida's going to score a lot of points. I'm taking Florida -6. Dale, what's your pick here?
I'm kind of with you. It's not one I'd probably.
It's a lock.
Just because, I mean, this is still a rivalry game. It feels like it's been close really consistently for the past handful of years since Kentucky's kind of risen up. So I don't love taking it, but I mean, if I was to do it, I would be on Kentucky or Florida, to cover that 6 points because, I mean, I'm just such a Richardson.
I also think the over is not a horrible play. I think Vegas is kind of capping this game like both teams are going to run the football. You have two guys who, for better or worse, are explosive. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. Whether they're making plays with their feet, throwing the ball downfield with their howitzer arms, or throwing it to the other team, I think you'll see a lot more points than 52 in this game. So if I was forced to make a pick, it'd probably be on the over. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a shootout than it is going to be like a grind them out game. That's both kind of how they want to play. That's the lean here. We appreciate you guys checking us out, just chopping it up about ball. Again, if you guys do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, let us know in the comment section how this game is going to be played out. We really do appreciate you guys checking us out, and we'll talk to y'all later.